Hey folks, welcome to the Ecommerce Playbook Podcast. I'm your host, Richard Gaffin, Director of Digital Product Strategy here at Common Thread Collective. And I'm joined today by Mr. Taylor Holiday, as I often am. I'm going to change it to often from always. Joined by Taylor to talk a little bit more about forecasting. Taylor, what's going on, man?
Yeah, I mean, it is one of the moments of the year where we have to make a bunch of big decisions about a critical period of time in the future, which is an exercise in planning and forecasting. And so I think we want to revisit these moments when they come up. It'll happen again towards the end of the year. Usually there's sort of like a midway mark where you are revisiting how you've done to budget so far. But right now ahead of Q4, whether it's a key inventory decision, setting a budget, deciding on investment thresholds, dealing with tariffs, there's all sorts of things that are causing people to take a step back and go, what's about to happen in this key moment of the year? And I've just heard the conversation come up a lot today. We're going to play a clip in a second, if you hang around, from the Operators podcast that was out today, where the first half of it was all about planning.
Stack that against what do we think sales are going to be, right? So that's just me and Connor work on that project. So, we tried to bring in a finance team. We tried to have finance do it, and they just had such a worse understanding of our business. Very smart people, way better at financial planning, they're like, okay, we're going to look at website visitors. This is what we think website visitors will convert at. We don't do it that way. We're like, what was last year's sales? Let's go month by month, week by week, and be like, what do we get right? What do we get wrong? What did we learn? Where do we think there's like still meat left to actually like extract from the bone? So we do that together. We'll do that in December, probably the last 2 weeks of the year. Connor he'll be in LA by that point, so we'll be hanging out every day just doing that. And then we try to find reasons to grow, right? And that's like the big thing to take away from this conversation, is that left static, your business will stay the same or shrink, right? So we've been able to grow at Ridge because our MER went down every year, right? And the only years where it went up, there's probably 2 years in company history where the MER went up. It was because we launched a new product category that was net new to the business, right? That could grow revenue at a higher MER. So we have to look at reasons to grow. If you're like, I'm going to do the same thing and I'm going to spend less money on ads, but revenue is going to grow, that does not happen, right? Like, it's like, there has to be a new reason for people to come in. So me and him will work on that together.
Even amongst that group of guys who I think are obviously all incredible operators, if you go listen to the episode, you'll hear just like lots of confusion and figuring it out. And still, I think we could be better at this. And
this episode of the Ecommerce Playbook is brought to you by Postscript. Stop chasing revenue in crowded inboxes and overpriced social feeds. Postscript makes SMS the channel your brand actually owns, where your message lands, gets read, and drives real dollars. With 98% plus open rates and replies in minutes, Postscript turns texts into conversations that convert without blowing your budget. It's a completely unique and high-performing channel where personalized messaging delivers 20x ROI and keeps customers coming back. Top Shopify brands like Caraway and Ridge rely on Postscript to move the needle, capturing more revenue, protecting margins, and scaling growth. So, ready to start texting smarter? Just visit postscript.io.
That's certainly true for all of us, but I think this is something that we have spent so much time and energy and thought around that I'd like to believe that just based on the disproportionate amount of reps that we get, that we've developed a process that we find to be pretty useful, that's producing some pretty accurate outcomes for our customers. And I want to talk a little bit about what makes it work. And we're going to play a couple clips from that podcast, talk about some of our results from July, and share a little bit about some stuff that I think you'll take away as a listener as gems that you can either apply to your planning process or will make you want to reach out and chat with us about how we can help you with that planning process.
That's right. And speaking of which, let's just say up front, again, we're still giving away free spend and AMER reports for certain 8 and 9-figure businesses, which again is sort of like one of the initial phases of our forecasting process. We would love to do that for you if this is something that you struggle with. So without further ado, like you had mentioned, again, sort of the way that we get reps with our forecasting. And I think case in point is one thing we want to kind of kick it off with is going over our report card. So Taylor and I have done an episode on this occasionally over the last few months. We're a little bit late on this one, but we have our July data in now that we're midway through August. We have our July data in, and we can report that on spend and revenue across all of our clients, essentially we beat our revenue forecast by 1.7%. And we missed our spend forecast slightly by 5.93%, which all things considered essentially means we got pretty close or basically hit our forecast.
Yeah, that puts us at about plus 10. Yeah, it puts us at about plus 10% on contribution margin. So you beat revenue on slightly less spend. This is the constant pain in my side. If you live in the halls of CTC, I'm hammering us on spending more money because we just have a conservative bent towards really trying to be disciplined about the dollar allocation, and that can lead us to underestimating opportunities. And we're still learning to operationalize and trust some of the testing methodologies around incrementality and things. So good results overall for sure, but I think that we want to continue to press into that spend deficit for sure. But yeah, again, across over this will end up more north of, it'll probably be around 3 billion GMV, I think, on this data set that we're talking to. So we're talking about multiple hundreds of millions of dollars every month that we're forecasting across lots of brands. And so you do get a really deep set of repetitions of, okay, in each case, when we were wrong, what went wrong? And when we were right, why? And you can take it and reflect and learn. We have different people with different outcomes at different levels and get a sense of who is really getting after it and who is being disciplined and where there are some gaps still to be filled. So there's just, and this is months and months and months and months and months and months and months for years and years and years and years and years of doing this exercise.
Yeah. And yeah, the point being that we've gotten good at this. Our forecasts, generally speaking, are accurate. And I think like one thing that this clip that we kind of listened to and we're going to listen to brought up is that this remains a mysterious process for a lot of people, even for like the smartest people in the game. So why don't we play that clip right now?
Yep.
And we'll listen to it and then we'll talk about it afterwards.
So let me set up just a little context. So this morning's episode, you have Sean Frank from Ridge talking about his financial budgeting and planning process. They all went through it. You heard Jason talk about it. You had Matt talk about it. You had Mike all talk about it. So I'd go listen to all of them. But I think Sean hits on something here that is closest to what we believe about what this process entails that we're going to unpack.
Okay, let's play that clip now. Break. And okay. So in that clip, what were the main takeaways for you, Taylor?
So I love a few things about this. One, in a very, Sean does this like funny deferential / slightly condescending thing where he says, yeah, we brought in these really smart finance guys and then dismissed everything that they said because they didn't know what they were doing. But this is actually my experience of how finance approaches this problem, right? Which is that finance people generally have skill sets that are bent towards Excel and modeling, and they look to extrapolate trends in data, whether that's through building models like spend and AMER or retention curves, or in his example, the most common thing we see, which I think is the absolute worst version of forecasting, is trend-based traffic analysis. Mm-hmm. This channel had this many visits and this conversion rate at this AOV. And so if we grow traffic by this percent and so it's this traffic-based bottoms-up trend analysis. And that tends to be a very limited view where that exercise is useful in so much that the future is like the past, because you are taking the past and you are drawing a representation or a trend towards how it will be in the future. But here's what we all know. And the last 5 years of e-commerce has taught us this well, that the future is almost never like the past as an exact exercise. But that is my experience of how financial people approach this problem, in part because it's the part that they control. It's the world that they understand and know. And so people approach things from their area of deepest expertise or understanding. But what Sean does, because he's sort of an entrepreneur, is he goes back to his marketing guy in this example. And he says, yeah, and then me and Connor get together and go, well, what will we need to actually do to grow? What are going to be the actions or the products or the things that we're going to create that drive the outcomes that we want? Because what he understands, and this is what we believe we have married uniquely in our planning process at CTC, is that the qualitative planning, we would use the marketing calendar as the reference point for the actions of building units of growth. These are campaigns, product launches, promotions, influencer, new ad campaign launches, emails that you send. These are all the actions that will actually produce revenue in the future. If you don't do these things, last year's historical performance will be irrelevant. Mm-hmm. And so you have to then take the qualitative plan of the marketing calendar, fill it with all of the things that you plan to do, the new products that you plan to launch, all of the things that you're going to action against, and marry it with the trends of the historical data, the models, the spend and AMER. And then we even build a third model on top of it, which we call the event effect model, where you actually analyze the impact of these marketing actions so that you can begin to understand, okay, well, what if I do launch a promotion? What will happen? What happens when I do send an email? But what I love in this clip is Sean is illustrating what is really the point, is that a forecast is an exercise that comes out of the marketing team or the product team, not out of the finance team. It has to be. Now, it's not to say that both can't provide insight, but the reality is that the future is made up of actions that you have to decide to take. Mm-hmm. Let me say this again. The future is made up of actions that you have to decide to take. They are not set in stone. They are not just going to happen. You have to make them. And that, I think, is really the key of what we have discovered, is that if we just do a trend based on your forecast, and then that promotion that you had planned to launch on the 20th doesn't happen, there is no right forecast. So I'm going to stop there because it brings us to the third leg of the stool. So you have the qualitative or the quantitative modeling, the qualitative planning, and then there's a third leg that's really important that I'm going to talk about in a second, but I'm going to stop there as a reflection on the clip.
Yeah. Well, I real quick, like one thing that I wanted to pull out from it, because I think it's really well stated by Sean here, which is when he talks about his process of quote unquote forecasting with Connor. He's like, okay, what was last year's sales? Let's go month by month, week by week, and be like, what did we get right? What did we get wrong? What did we learn? And I think that's like a much better way of going about that. It's not about prediction. It's about seeing what happened and seeing what could have gone better, and then attempting to take those actions in the future, as opposed to just simple prediction. It's not that. It's basically building yourself a roadmap of action, right? If you're trying to cut through the noise and actually get your customers' attention, listen up. Postscript is the SMS platform that helps brands like yours turn texts into revenue. Unlike email or social ads that get buried and ignored, SMS lands straight on customers' phones where they actually read and reply. Postscript boasts open rates over 98%, which means your message gets seen. And because people respond in minutes, not days, you can build real conversations that drive sales and loyalty. Big names like True Classic, Ruggable, and Caraway trust Postscript to grow their business with the channel that's changing e-commerce. So head over to postscript.io and mention this podcast for an exclusive offer. Seriously, give it a shot. Your customers are already on their phones. It's time you were too.
Right. And even inherent in that is this idea of week by week, day by day, month by month. What did we do on that Thursday in September that created that big spike? Mm-hmm. Oh, that's cool. Could we do that again? Oh no, that was a momentary thing that was related to the Stanley. Like in the metaphor, Mike Beckham talks about how they missed their January comp this year. And at first he was like so worried about why. And then he realized that in January of 2024, it was the big Stanley water bottle viral moment that lifted the whole category. And I go, man, for somebody like Mike, like, how did you not go back to January 2024 and go, why was this so good? Will that happen again? Oh no. But what it's inherent is this idea that you're just trending. You go, oh, January was this, without understanding day by day, week by week, what was the impetus? What was the action? Is that replicable? Will it exist again? Is it going to change? What is different than, and our data sets, it really, in these cases, for many of these businesses we're talking about, are still really small, with subject to massive volatility and change over time. And so the idea that there's this very consistent pattern of behavior that we can use without doing this level of analysis is just not true.
Yeah, right. There's definitely, and we've mentioned this on the pod before for sure, but there's definitely like a psychological issue here where people treat forecasting like predicting the weather or something like that, as if there was nothing that we had any control over, A, and B, as if like there weren't human beings on the other side making choices that are kind of pretty obvious when you go back and kind of look at the data and look at these things that happen.
It's all choices. And that's the thing, is that the reason we can't just model this is because it's not a random number generating machine that has some inherent underlying algorithm that outputs the results. Like, there are people making decisions, turning budgets on and off, launching campaigns, sending emails, influencers making posts, people saying things, PR articles being published, all sorts of cultural undertones leading to these realities that you have to interact with in order to do this well. So there's just this beautiful, I think, marriage between not dismissing the finance people and saying that you have no role in this, because we're sitting here at the same time saying we're going to build you a spend an AMER model. Like, but what we do is we don't stop there. We don't stop at the cohort specific retention model. The third step of our process is build the marketing calendar, build the event effect model, allow it to inform the beginning point of your spend an AMER model. If we go, hey, this is what it says now, but then we added this really cool new product launch, well, that's going to affect the expectation of the model, because that future plan we know has an underlying potential value that will affect and disassociate from the historical data.
Right. All right. So let's move on to this third leg of the chair. So tell me a little bit about this, Taylor.
So if you've listened to me at all, I hope you've heard me use these phrases. I'm being reminded in this moment about how few people have actually heard me say the things I feel like I've said many times. So we're going to be revisiting a lot of some content that if you've been listening for a while, saddle up because we're going back to it. But it's this phrase that great forecasting is an exercise in execution more than it is in modeling. And so the third stage of this is a bunch of people who have to lock arms with clarity of their role in the plan and execute it well. Okay. So the third leg is execution. Mm-hmm. So there's great quantitative planning, there's great qualitative planning, and then there's great execution. All three of these things are how you deliver accurate forecasts. Okay. It's not just the planning process. And so on the execution side, what you have to be able to do to make a plan operational is it can't just be a number. Okay. It has to be broken down into a set of corresponding actions for every team member every day that they have to participate in to deliver that result. And it has to give them, you have to have the indicators that give you visibility to when you're on or off track so they can course correct very quickly. Because the way you get to the result is not a straight line. It's tacking back and forth between too much, too little, too much, too little, just right, just right, just right, too little, too much, too little, too little, too much. And that visibility is the wind that tacks your sail back and forth to stay on course. Mm-hmm. And so it is so important that the execution is actually thought of as a part of accurate forecasting. And this is where I think these things get dissociated, as if there's a plan that was or wasn't right, and then there's execution that was good or bad. And sometimes the execution people will turn around and go like, well, the plan was bad. And it's like, well, hold on a second. How could your execution be disassociated from the plan? I don't understand. You should be executing the plan. And this is like when I even when I see this deficit in spend, what frustrates me so much is that like what that means is some human made a choice that was disassociated from the plan. You actually inserted yourself above and beyond the plan and said, I'm just going to not spend. But that wasn't the agreement. That wasn't the expectation. That wasn't what the organization oriented itself around. You made a commitment to deliver this number. And this is why I think the people who execute have to be involved and feel accountable and ownership of the plan itself, is because you are putting your name on it. Mm-hmm. You said, I will do this. Why didn't you do it? And I don't want to hear the 75 excuses why, but you said, in light of all the things you knew and could consider, you were going to deliver this number, go and make it happen.
Right. Yeah. I mean, what you're describing is ownership of the number, which I think is like the fundamental reason that it's so important to have the executor and the planner be the same person, or at least be in a tight team. Because of course, like the thing that you hear across many businesses is the finance team said this and the marketing team was like, we can't do that. But they didn't feel particularly empowered to say to the finance team or the CEO or whatever big boss is kind of sending this number down that, oh, we can't actually make this happen. Because on the ground, we understand that this isn't going to work, but the powers that be are telling us like we have to, right? And then it creates this disconnect, and then plans are missed and forecasts are broken, whatever the case may be, right? And so what we're talking about is giving ownership of the number to the people who are actually going out and trying to get that number, right?
That's right. So exactly. And so when you bring all this together, what you need is like really smart data people doing quantitative modeling. And we have some really cool ways to do that in some of the, we think, most cutting edge models in our industry to help you start a baseline for extrapolating what has been true so far. And this is like we say, what is likely to occur if you were to continue on the current path. Then you need like really detailed, thoughtful, qualitative planning about your marketing calendar in the future, and as far out as you possibly can, as intimately connected to the product planning and promotion and creative and everything that you think is going to occur in a month. I mean, down to every email you're going to send, every ad you're going to launch, as much detail as possible about the actions you're going to take in the future, and as far out as you're able to plan them. And the best brands we have, so this is a good baseline expectation. How far out should you be planned? The best brand we have that does this the best, that we've been partners with for long, you've heard me talk about them a lot, and Claire and the team at Born Primitive deserve credit for this. They have 2026 planned. Wow. I'm dead serious. All the marketing campaigns, every product launch, the email set, like it's planned. Now, will it be revised along the way? Yes. But this is a brand that launches tons of new collections and product and promotion, has to plan inventory, has to go out into the future, and they're planned. And so that's the bar. Can you get a year out in this? You heard Sean say it in this, if you listen to this episode, that like Yeti has 2030 product development plans done. And that's true. This is what happens. And so if you as an organization don't find yourself widening the distance on your planning over time, you've got a problem. You're stuck in some sort of loop that needs to be revised because you're not getting out in front of it. And you need to interject some longer term planning into your workflow. But once that's in place, then you need the tooling. And this is where Statless, I think, is really a uniquely designed tool that's built around this. It's a system for tying together planning and execution in a way that gives every team member. So when I say team member, I mean your media buyer, your creative team, your email and SMS team, your head of growth, your head of finance, all the ability to track within their individual domain, contribution margin, email revenue, IROAS for a specific channel, all the different indicators that ladder up to the overall corporate goal. They can see exactly where they are every day. And there's an expectation of what they're supposed to do every day. And there's an ability to see if they're on or off track that's shared organizationally so that we all know, okay, we're light on email revenue. That email we thought was going to crush on the second didn't. We need to adjust course, send another email, revise an opportunity, do a resend, find a segment that we can extract more value out of, because we don't just get to say, oh, it missed. The only thing that's valuable, understanding that you missed, is so that you can go and make it right. And that is how you accurately forecast.
That's right. One thing that I did want to touch on, because we've mentioned it a couple times, but the core of or the beginning of our process here is the spend and AMER model, which of course is data modeling, trend forecasting, essentially. So talk to us about what is the role of that in this, right? Why is it necessary to have this sort of accurate kind of forecasting model at the basis?
Yeah, it's because there is some questions that you are really subject to bias about. Okay, so as an example, how much money can you spend at what profitability level next month? Okay, answering that question is a starting point that says, all right, well, how much have I been able to spend at different efficiency levels in the past is a very good starting point for assessing the question. It's not the totality of it. So when I say the starting point, what do I mean? Right now, everybody is facing likely an underlying change in their cost of goods related to tariffs. Maybe not everybody, but a lot of people. As a result, it is likely true that your efficiency targets are changing. Now, maybe some of this you're passing on cost to the customer, but the reality is you're not going to be able to pass 100% of that cost on to the customer, most likely. So suddenly your ROAS target is different than it has been historically. So now you have to look out and you go, well, how much am I going to be able to spend at this level? And this is where a spend and AMER model can help you get a historical understanding of, in the month of September, based on how you've trended across all of these exercises, what is like the likely band of expected performance for your spend at that efficiency level. And because it's a novel one, it's a new one that you've never done before, you can't just go, well, what did I spend last month, right? You need to know that curve. And so this gives you a starting point for that and allows us to sort of help you answer a really important question. Now, the next question goes to the qualitative planning. Well, what are we going to do the same or different than we've done in the past that would allow us to break the model or potentially underperform the model? So it's important to make considerations of, oh shit, we're out of stock on our 2 best SKUs. Well, then it's likely that you're going to underperform the model because the model can't see that without that input, right? So these are the things where you use it as a starting point. You have a qualitative layer of discussion that leads to a formalized decision and plan that allows you to be more accurate more often.
Yeah. Okay. So I think let's then kind of double back to, or rather move on to the question that we always like to ask during these, which is what's like the one tactical takeaway from this? Like what is the thing that you can do beyond obviously hitting us up to build a spend and AMER report for you? What's like the thing that you can adjust with your own approach to forecasting right now that would make the most impact?
Bring the marketing calendar into the process. However you're currently forecasting, I would challenge you, and it's even a worthwhile exercise to go back and build out a 2-year version in as detail of ways you can about what your historical marketing activities have been. So this is like, if you wanted to hire someone to do a project for you, have someone come in, work with your team to build out the last 2 years, every day, what have we done? What promotions did we run? What was the sale? What influencer drops happened? What product releases? What emails did we send? And have that as a baseline that you can then build off of going forward and start to see how far out in front of it you can plan. And when you go into the room to set the budget, whether it's for next month or next year, bring it with you. And then ask yourself, okay, what is different or the same this year? And therefore, how does that affect whatever trend or expectation I have? Will that promotion that we run every January 2nd, are we doing it again? Is it the same offer? Is it a different offer? How will that perform relative to where we're at? Oh, that product launch we had February 3rd of last year, we don't have one this year. Okay, shit, we can't expect that February days to be as good. Like, bring it with you. Bring the qualitative POV into the financial portion of the conversation and force whoever's coming from the marketing side to have it built out as in depth as possible, understanding entirely that it is subject to change. But it is a starting point for the discussion that will anchor the behavioral patterns and project management of the entire organization.
That's right. All right, folks. Well, if you want us to begin this process for you to help build the Spend an AMER report for you, we're giving away for free to certain 8 and 9-figure brands. Hit us up, commonthreadco.com, hit that hire us button. Let us know that you want to chat. We would love to talk to you. But yeah, anything else you want to hit on this, Taylor?
No, I'm coming for y'all. I'm back in my bridges mindset. I'm reminded of like this. We're not done with this material. I can't. The amount of confusion and complexity I'm encountering around some of these issues inside of organizations. I'm just reminded again. I didn't solve it. I didn't solve marketing and finance connection forever. It's still a major issue, and we want to help continue to lean in because we think it's a really important way that businesses improve and get better at what they're trying to produce. So, appreciate y'all.
That's right, folks. All right. We'll talk to you next week. Thanks for listening, y'all. See ya.